Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you. I am Simona Pillay, and I will be your host for this evening. I see that people are still joining, so I think in the meantime, we can take a few minutes just to relax and calm our minds. I've got a short meditation for us to do. So if everyone can just sit back and relax, and we will do this short meditation. Okay, so if everyone can just sit comfortably and close your eyes, take in a long, deep inhale in and hold for a few seconds, and then exhale. Take another deep breath in, hold, and exhale. Allow your breathing to return back to a normal pace, and picture all your worries, stress, and anxiety from the day melt away. Feel yourself as a source of energy and light, and experience a warm glow around you. Envision yourself sitting in this warm light, embracing the feelings of peace and love. Allow this warm light to fill you as you experience total relaxation. Once again, I encourage you to take a deep breath in and release. Okay, thank you everybody. Once again, welcome to you all. It's quite cold here in Johannesburg this evening, so I hope everyone is nice and cozy and ready for today's session. I am Simona Pillay, and I have been with the Brahma Kumaris for 4 years now, and my passion is particularly for youth development and empowerment. I'm delighted to be hosting today's session on parenting, and I would like to thank you all for taking the time to engage in this constructive and insightful discussion. Today, I would like to introduce our presenter for this evening, and it gives me great pleasure to do so. Dianne Tillman, who is a licensed educational psychologist, marriage and family therapist, and values education authority, as well as meditator. She helped create a global values education initiative, and she has authored 15 resource books on values education. She has circled the globe numerous times to hold multiple seminars on living values education and personal development. One of Dianne's most recent books is titled Nurturing with Love and Wisdom, Disciplining with Peace and Respect. This is a mindful guide to parenting, which we will be engaging her on in this session. Dianne emphasizes on parenting using the qualities of love, peace, respect, wisdom, and offers guidance and encouragement, listening, peace time, us time, building positive behavior, developing responsibility and discipline while dealing with practical realities such as homework and how to get kids to handle squabbles respectively and independently. Welcome, Dianne, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Simona. It's lovely to see you again, and I'm Very pleased to be with you all. I visited South Africa in, I think it was 2003, and had a wonderful time. I really enjoyed my stay there.
Glad. Thank you, Dianne. Okay, so if you can just give us a little bit of insight into the book you have authored, and we'll then go into some questions thereafter.
Great. What I'd like to do is share with you a little bit of, sorry, I'm going to just share with you a little bit about the book, about parenting. And so I have a PowerPoint presentation I'd like to share. But essentially, I find this balance of nurturing with love and wisdom and disciplining with peace and respect is so very important. When I worked with as a school psychologist for 23 years, I didn't usually see parents that were not having any problems. I saw the parents who were either having great problems because they were erring too much on the side of so much love and no discipline, or too much discipline and no love. So those were the parents I often saw. So this balancing act is very, very important. But I think that parenting is the most important task in the world. And you are your children's treasure, your children's protector. You're the world to them, and you're their safety. So I'm so glad that you've joined us. I would like to ask you, if you were a child, and maybe you can type your responses in chat and Simona can read out some of the responses. But if you were 5 or 6 years old, what advice would you like to give to parents in the world, or to all adults in the world, about how they should act or how they should be? What would you like them to do? So it's an interesting question. It may take you a moment to think of it. But this is a question. You can type in chat your answers, or you can unmute yourself and share. But just one sentence. Be patient with me and love me. Beautiful. Be there. Give your 100%. Shower me with love. Play with me. Be the adult. Stop screaming at me. I'm not deaf. I'm just ignoring you. Wow. Listen to me. Beautiful responses. Yes, as children, we want our parents to play with us and to attend to us. Be loving and understanding. I'm seeing more chat responses. Don't be hurtful with me. All these things you're saying are true. I've asked people this many, many, many times in workshops around the world. I would love my parents to protect me and discipline me gently. I need boundaries. You are all very advanced 5 and 6 year olds. Okay, so I've asked this question many, many times over the years. And I'm going to share my screen and get a PowerPoint up. And what I've found is that the answers are all the same. Doesn't matter the culture. When we ask that inner child what we'd like, the answers are just like the beautiful ones you gave. So thank you for sharing that. So this balancing act is important. Okay. You are not only your child's greatest treasure and greatest protector, but you are also the hope for the world. Because what's important? What's the difference between heaven and hell? It's very simple, really. It's the state of the soul. It's that peace and love and happiness and self respect and strength, or it is meanness and cruelty and corruption. So the differences are really very simple in ways. What do we really want? We really want. Anybody, any answers? What do we really want? Anyone? What is our most basic need? You can type in chat or voice it. I can't see the chat, Simona, so you'll have to read it out to me.
Okay.
I'll answer.
Loved.
What
To
was
be
that?
loved, Dianne.
Love. Okay. Exactly my response. What we all want is love. And it doesn't matter if we're children. For children, we want it very, very most. But as adults, we want it and we need it. And the adults that can't get love, they go to all kinds of extents to try to get that love, sometimes becoming corrupt or greedy or whatever they are in order to try to get admiration or power. So this is a model I developed when I was doing work with living values. The project began in '96, and this model really didn't come into being until about 3 years later. And I love this model. And it's a model that I'd like you to think about after our talk. But this model is very simple. Can you see my cursor, Simona?
Yes, we can see it, Dianne.
Okay, great. So the model is
But your volume is bad, yeah?
when we help children feel loved, respected, valued, understood, and safe, they grow towards their potential. Whatever their behavior is, be it positive or be it negative, when we treat them in such a way that they feel loved, respected, valued, and understood and safe, they grow towards their potential. When we help them feel inadequate, hurt, afraid, shamed, and unsafe, they feel differently. And you might want to think of times when you felt guilt-induced or criticized or shamed or punished, and your reactions. Perhaps you felt scared or unworthy, or you got to feeling really low, or you became depressed, or you became very angry and resentful and rebelled against parents or authority figures. But when children are treated in these ways, then they move away from their potential. So in this book on parenting and in living values and in my work with the Brahma Kumaris, I use this model. I love this model. And the whole point is that we need to stay above the line. So when I do this with BKs, when I do this with living values, educators, adults, parents around the world, I always say, what are the positive things that you do that create this? And then we identify the negative factors in their world, their own individual world, or maybe their workplace world, or the world of their classroom or of their family. What are the negative things that impact us? Maybe it's criticism or harsh words, or impact the child, bullying. So, how can we eliminate these things so we can all stay above the line and stay in a state where we too feel this love, respect, feel that we are valued, we feel understood, and we are safe? So, I invite you to think about your family culture and what would you like more of? in your family culture? I'm sure there's love there. Would you like more love? Maybe there's appreciation, cooperation, responsibility, belonging, joy, um, fun. What do you want in your family culture? Lightness, peace. What do you want? Because each one of us is different, and you get to decide what's in your family and grow that. So, part of this equation, because you're parents and hence you are responsible for this, is the values that you wish to hold in your heart as a parent. And I often ask people, what 3 values or qualities would you like to hold in your heart and in your mind when dealing with children? This program is being given by the Brahma Kumaris. And so they have a beautiful saying. And the saying is, when there is love, there is cooperation. And I remember using this once when I was working as a school psychologist, because this parent was doing only discipline, only. And the child had become so hardened that the child didn't care anymore. When a child doesn't care about how a parent treats him or her because the child is being punished so much, it's very sad. And they are very rebellious and very, very angry. It's tragic. And I remember the mother was so upset. She couldn't understand why the child wouldn't cooperate or do anything. And I finally just looked at her and I said, when there's love, there's cooperation. And she totally got it. It was very, very interesting. So it's, what do we want parenting to be? And so anyhow, there's this book, and I'm afraid it has more than 30 chapters in it because I decided if I was going to write a book, I was going to share everything I wanted to say. But I'd say the first thing is to realize the importance of love to you, your spouse, your partner, your children. And 1, grow your own love. So whether you meditate or pray or go for walks in nature or connect with the divine in another way, grow your own love every morning. It's much easier to share love when we're in a state of love. It's much easier to share peace when we're in a state of peace. So first thing in the morning, grow your love. Spend a few minutes, maybe only 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but spend time anchoring yourself in peace and love so you can be an embodiment of that. Once I was working at a new school and the principal didn't know me very well. And I said, Alice, I'm leaving for the rest of the day. It was only 10:30 in the morning. And she said, why? I said, I'm crazy right now. She didn't know me, so she didn't know my sense of humor or my reality. And so she said, what do you mean? You're not acting crazy. You don't look crazy. I said, I'm not feeling well. And when I'm not feeling well, I'm not happy. And no one else around me will be happy. So I'm leaving. I'll be fine tomorrow. I'll see you early in the morning. And she sort of smiled. And she was the most wonderful principal. We had such a great time at that school. I stayed there until I resigned, until I retired. So it's really lovely. But when we're happy, when we're light, when we take care of ourselves, it's much easier to be light with the children and happy and balanced. And it's important to have that balance. And it's important to learn parenting skills. If we have parenting skills, then we know what to do to not enter into that downward spiral of anger and resentment. I remember when I first had children in the house, my partner arrived with a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. And I remember the 9-year-old instantly challenged me. We had gone out somewhere and she dropped something and she looked at me and she said, "Pick that up." Now, I was already a psychologist. So, and I worked in the school system. So in my head, what occurred, I was already teaching parenting classes. So in my head, what happened is 4 different responses. Well, I could do this, 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 or this. This is a huge advantage for a parent to know the options and that it's going to work and what you want ultimately. And so I said to her, if you want me to do something for me, if you want me to do something for you, you'll have to ask me in a way that I like. And I got into the car. She picked up what she dropped, got into the car, and that was the last I ever heard of that tone of voice. If I had become angry, she would have felt either angry, hurt, afraid, and would have started into the downward spiral of resentment. And so I thought, yes, it's hard to enter into a new family, to have a new person acting as your mom for part of the time. And so how can I help the relationship be good and grow? And it was just absolutely wonderful. So if we look at that model, we don't want to go this way. We want to stay in love and respect and do the so many things that we can do. And so one of the things I recommend is us time. Us time is very simple. Us time is spending time with your kids, quality time, really attending to them. And some people may say, oh, it's easy to do when they're little or when they're 8, and they don't need it when they're older. And it's not true. They completely need it when they're older. They completely need it when they're teenagers. And you may even say, well, my teenagers don't even talk to me. They're always locked in the room playing their video games. Well, why? So we need to get them out of that room and we need to have some us time. So how do we do that? I remember one woman, she came to me and her child was 8 and she said, my daughter's driving me nuts. And I said, oh, how is she driving you nuts? And she said, well, she talks to me constantly, all the time. I can't stand it. She even comes into the kitchen. Wherever I go in the house, she just comes and talks and talks and talks. And I said, do you listen? And she looked down and then she looked at me and she said, no. So I checked out how she was doing in school, if she had friends, etc. Her academics, everything was normal. So I said, okay, Mom, I'll tell you what to do. I want you to go home today and I want you to spend 15 to 20 minutes when she first gets home from school. And I want you to listen to her. And I want you to play anything she wants to play. And I want you to enjoy her and have a good time with her. And I want you to do that every single day when she gets home from school. Mom came back in a week. I said, how's it going? And the mother said, her talking has decreased 80%. I am so happy. And she said, and our relationship has improved so much. So this us and playtime, it's for your child to feel loved, which is essential, as we have already identified. But it helps you enjoy being a parent And it's really important. When you can attend to your children every day, what happens is you know what's happening in their life. And they tell you things. This allows you to keep them safe. So there's several things to do. And in this book, there's many other suggestions. I'm just going to show you a few of them. But this importance of play and us time. You know, if your teen is currently stuck on video games, it might be saying good morning, asking about their day, asking about their video games. For families, creating family time so that everybody is without their cells. Maybe you have them help you make dinner. But the parents turn off their cell phones, everybody turns off their games, and you have family time for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Once a week, maybe you watch a movie together, or you go for a walk, or you go bicycling, or whatever your family likes to do. Maybe you like to play musical instruments or draw, or if they're little, just play silly games. I remember teenagers when I was counseling. Sometimes they'd come in so stuck. And so if they were really, really stuck, I'd say, let's take a walk. And I'd walk with them in the neighborhood. I was the only one that ever left the campus to walk with a child. And, you know, or if they were little and just stuck, I'd take them out to the swing set and swing. And then they'd start talking. But we have to connect with our children. Because if we can connect and if we can listen, they will come to us when there's a need. This keeps them safe. Appreciation and building positive behavior is very important. Listening, opportunities to belong and to be responsible. And I just looked at my watch, and Simona was going to ask questions, so I'm going to go really quickly through the rest of it and hardly do any of it. But I can send, you know, if you like, I'll send these to you, or you can get the book on Amazon. I made it free or 99 cents, so anybody and everybody can get it if you want it as an ebook. Otherwise, you can get a paper book. But the importance of play is so, so great. Actions and communications, you know, our love, affection, our glances of love and appreciation. These are the currency of human relationships. We can overpraise. It is possible to overpraise, and so we need to be careful. But in terms of good vibrations, of acknowledgement and valuing others, we can't overdo that. But genuine and specific praise. It doesn't have to be praise words, just to notice what they're doing, like a little girl noticing the drawing, describing it. Not just that's great and turning your head away, but describing what you see and giving them those vibrations. But just like with our spouses, our partners, our friends, our teenagers especially, anybody, no spoilers. Not, honey, dinner was great. I wish you'd cook like that all the time. That's a spoiler. It really ruined the compliment, so no spoilers. You want to leave a positive feeling between you and in their mind, in your mind, during the interaction and when the interaction ends. Listening. Chapter 7 in the book, please read it at least 5 times. Active listening is a gift because it helps them accept their own emotions. And if the people can lovingly accept their own emotions, they can work on those negativities within and come up with solutions in a positive way. It helps us process our emotions and others to process their emotions. So listening is equal to us time, playtime, positive words, the third, listening. And children's self-respect really grows when a parent listens. So we're not going to have time to go through listening and what to avoid. And then, of course, healthy food is important. Video games and films, are they humanizing or dehumanizing? What are we bringing into the house as books? Are there themes of peace, love, friendship, diversity, and the courage to be kind? You know, we are transmitting values to children all the time. And so those values we're transmitting become the beautiful tapestry in the life of the family. And then to discipline. And of course, we can spend a lot of time on this, just like the balance of love and wisdom. There's discipline with peace and respect. But how do we keep love in the eyes when we're disciplining? And if you know the tools and how they work, you will be able to do that. And your relationships with your children will bloom, and with adults. So there's different chapters in the book. You know, this first one, to cane or not to cane, is looking at the negative effects of punishment. And then, you know, I talked about that model, that circle, and the line in the middle. And if there is disruptive behavior, then what helps you stop going below the line is to establish a thinking time or a timeout time, so that when somebody's negative, you separate. And it may be the spouse that's negative, or the partner. It may be a friend that's negative. It may be somebody at work. It may be your children. But how do you establish that thinking time with the understanding that what's important is to re-engage in a space of respect and love? For children, it's an opportunity to self-regulate, to self-modulate. Another word for it is to self-soothe. You know, when you have children and they're little, and sometimes you run their hand on their back when they're upset. Or maybe if they're really upset and they're a teen, then you give them a long hug. So the self-soothing is very important. And then you give them a task to do. So you set it up beforehand so they're not threatened. And then you help them learn that this is the time to think about what I need to do instead. And then if you like, there's logical consequences. And for difficult cases, either with friends who are breaking boundaries, or spouses, or teens, or even 9-year-olds who are absolutely refusing to do what you say, then there's a 4-step correction process, which is incredibly effective. So there's so many things I have to say and share with you. But I guess the most important message for this short talk is, when we live a balanced life, when we have a healthy lifestyle in terms of trusting, nurturing relationships, healthy food, playtime, family time, non-damaging video games, that the larger this part of the window is going to be. If this part of the window, if there's no education, if there's no playtime with parents or time with parents, if there's not that feeling of trust, then this part of the window gets small. Then the problem parts of the window get big. So make this part of the window your focus, the nurturing with love and wisdom. Learn how to listen. That's when children have problems. That's when you listen. But when the child is having a problem with you and your authority is being threatened, learn how to listen. Give them I messages. Give a 4-step correction process. Give a timeout so you can talk with respect. But the larger this part of the window, the smaller these parts of the window are going to be. So I will stop there and take Simona's questions.
Thank you, Sister Dianne. I think we definitely need more than one session to cover everything. But, everything was so beautifully shared, and there's so much of insight, and you addressed some of the questions that I had, but I'm going to invite everyone else on the session to please post their questions in the chat. And to kick things off, I'll just ask you one or two. So in the beginning, you mentioned how important it is for us as parents to instill and feel the values within ourselves. We need to feel peace, we need to feel love in order for our kids to sense that and for us to discipline in that way. So for parents that are struggling with everyday life, and life happens, traffic, work, it is quite difficult to maintain that good positive energy. And sometimes when you get home at the end of a long day, it's not easy for many parents to maintain that mindset. So can you share a little bit about the importance of these vibrations and how we can ensure that we send this energy out to our kids regardless of what we are going through as parents?
I don't know if you can send it out if you don't have it at the moment. But I love your question, and I think it's a very good one. And I think, everybody in the family knows when we're upset. Just like when we live with someone, we know when they walk in the front door if they're upset or not. We can tell vibrationally. We know when something's wrong with our kids. But what I would like to suggest is that you have a snack an hour or two before you get home. If you're working a traditional day, let's say if you're an educator and you're working in a school system, pull out an apple and some dates at 3:00. Don't go for the candy bar. Pull out the apple and dates, maybe some celery, whatever fruit you have, but have a nutritious snack. We all have a blood sugar drop. So make sure your blood sugar is okay. This helps immensely. Pray or meditate in the morning. What I used to do when I would have a really rough day working, I would sometimes listen to a meditation commentary when I was changing locations, when there was a meeting at another school or an emergency. So I would just treat my time during places as my refresh time. I learned to connect with God when I was on the freeway and traffic was bad. I used to say I was the only one in a state of bliss on the 405 freeway and on the 605 freeway. But I could stay in bliss even when traffic was terrible. So train yourself to do that. I know sometimes I'd get really stressed because the traffic was terrible and I'd be late for a meeting. But I thought, if I get frazzled over this, I'll arrive a mess. If I arrive peaceful and powerful and full, then I'll be able to solve everything easily when I get there. So I learned how to train myself to stay positive. And there was once a story about a man, it's a story, I don't know if it's true, but another man was going home with him and he touched, the man they were working together and they had a really tough day. So the man going home, he touched a tree outside the house and went like this. And then he went inside. They had a wonderful evening. And when he was leaving, he said to the man, he said, "Why did you go like this when you touched that tree and you left? You seem to not be affected by the horrible day that you had." And the man said, "Well, when I go home, I hang all my problems on the tree. And I pick up my work problems to deal with on my way out the next day." So your family is your treasure. Your family is your safe place. So anyhow, those are a couple of suggestions, Simona.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
I see there's one in the chat. If you take a phone or toy away from a child because they don't listen, how do you keep to your word without feeling guilty?
Okay, if you take the phone away from a child, how do you keep your word? Because they don't listen. How do you keep your word without feeling guilty? So if you don't want to feel guilty, never give a consequence that you're not comfortable with. Because the child will guilt induce you. I remember once I gave too big a consequence to a child. And so the next day I said, yesterday, I called the child in and I said, yesterday I gave you a big consequence for doing such and such. And the reason I gave you such a consequence is because I was upset because you really hurt so and so's feelings. But my consequence was unfair. It was too big. So I'm changing my consequence and giving you a smaller one. So if you feel like your consequence is too big, then own up to it. But I would suggest other things before you take away a child's phone. It's important to have logical consequences. So that means when a child, let's say the child gets an allowance for a weekly allowance for doing the chores. So maybe the consequence is the child doesn't get the allowance if they don't do the chores. So that's logical. There's so many other things. For example, a lot of parents, they get upset when the child doesn't listen. That means they're not obeying. Okay. So if they're not obeying, what are they not obeying? I remember a mother came to me once and she said, you know, my husband gets home at 6. And so at 10 minutes at 6, 10 minutes to 6, I asked my son to clean up his toys in the living room because I want it nice when my husband comes home. And she said, but he doesn't do it. So I go in and I get angry at him and I yell at him and I pick up the toys and he hasn't had to do it. And we just do this every day and I'm sick of it. She said, what do I do? I said, okay. So I told her about us time. And it was very interesting. She didn't have any idea how to play with children. She'd never been played with. She didn't know how to play. So I actually had her bring her daughter and I played with her daughter so she could see how to play. She didn't know how. So, but then I told her what to do. I said, tell your child, honey, I'm gonna, when daddy comes home, you need to pick up your toys. Now I'm gonna give a logical consequence. Any toys that are left on the floor when daddy comes home that aren't picked up, I'm going to put them in a box and they're going to go on top of the closet and they will stay there for a week. And then after a week, you can have them again. And we will do that every time you leave toys on the floor when I ask you to do something. And then after a couple of weeks, if there's some toys that you never pick up, then we'll think about donating them and giving them to someone who would like them. Because if you're only picking up your favorite toys, then that means that maybe you don't want these toys anymore. In that case, it's important to share. Maybe you have too many. So that's a logical consequence. The other thing is, don't take away something when a child isn't listening. Think about how you're asking them. For example, in kindergarten, you can tell which mothers yell at their children. And how you tell is you tell all the kids in the kindergarten class what to do, and they all do it except one or two, and they sit there. They completely ignore you. And what you know is that either they're deaf or their mother's a screamer. So the child does not listen because he doesn't have to pay any attention to you until you get in a certain voice range. And then he knows there's impending doom and he better do it. So what you do is if your child ignores you, you say, you go over, like in kindergarten, you'd go over and say, did you hear me ask you? Did you hear me tell you to do da 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 da? Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to go da 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 da. And he looks at you like you're crazy because he doesn't think he has to do it because you're talking in that nice tone of voice. And then you take his hand and you say, okay, come on, let's go. And within a couple of hours, they realize that they have to pay attention to everything you say, and it's over. So if your child doesn't listen, get closer and speak sweetly and say, honey, I want you to do da 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 da. And then when they do, and then say, okay, if they need help doing, okay, let me show you how. And then you say something nice afterwards. You did a good job with that. Wow, look how well you did. That was terrific. You did this about it, and you did this about it, and you reinforce it. So if they're not paying any attention, don't just leave the room 15 times as you tell them each time until you start screaming at them. Stop. If it's important enough for you to say, it's important enough to call them on it. So get close and ask them. But are you asking them all the time? Does everybody have the responsibilities? You know, if they're teens, do you have a family chore list? Would you like to play with the kids if they're little and do family cleanup time for 15 minutes and everybody works on making the house clean? You know, everybody has a responsibility. Everybody's part of the family. Can you have a fun time doing it? Can you make it playful and fun where you all do something together and then positively comment?
Okay, thank you. That was very insightful. Another question here. How can you use timeout effectively if other caregivers in the house do not want to give the method a try and instead want to shout or spank the child?
Ouch. Okay, so I assume the other person, whoever the other person, be it a mother-in-law, father-in-law, a wife, or a husband is, have them read the book with you. Get the book. Get the book. And share the book. I can get them to you more cheaply. I'll send some to South Africa so you can get them very inexpensively. But read the book together. But time out, what you do is you can read the To Cane or Not Cane chapter together and then the Thinking Time chapter. But start with little things. First, start with us time and playtime. And convince this person, whoever it be, the other adult, to play with their child and enjoy their child a little bit every day. Or they can join you. And if you have this playtime and you have multiple children, then you can play with them all together, or if the husband does one and the wife does one, or you have a circle so that maybe two of them get time and the older ones are with the younger ones, so that, make a rota so that everybody gets us time. Just be aware. But have them do us time. Start with you saying positive things to your spouse or your partner or your mother-in-law or whoever it is about what you appreciate about them doing what they're doing with the kids. So build that. So build that for 1 or 2 weeks and then do the timeout. And then with the timeout, you have a pre-meeting with the children or with the child. So with the children, you could say, we're going to try something new in the family. And you say, what is the purpose of families? And what I love about you and you and you and you, and what I love about our family is, and the purpose of families, of our family is, and the purpose of families in society is. And then you ask the children, what do they think families are for? And then you say, so in our family, one of our purposes is to give love and happiness to each other. So when we're not giving love, what I want you to do is I want us to separate, and I want you to go wherever it is and think about what you can do instead. So when I notice you're giving unhappiness instead of happiness, or you're giving sorrow, I'll go like this. So you set up whatever signal you want, maybe the peace sign, a love sign, if it's a teenager, a timeout sign. With a little kid or even an older kid, say, I want you to pick your favorite plush toy to be with, so they can help you think about what you can do instead to give happiness. And for little kids, you set a very short time, maybe a minute or 2 minutes. For older kids, 5 minutes, maybe even 10. But have a pre-meeting. So when you say thinking time to self-soothe, time to be calm, or with your partner, and you can even use it with your partner. If your partner gets upset, you can say, but you set it up beforehand. You say, when we have a disagreement, I want us to talk with love and respect, because you're the most important person in my life. And I really want us to keep that love and respect whenever we talk. So if we're both getting upset, let's do this or whatever you want to do, so we can separate for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and talk with your spouse about how long they need. What you'll do this with your teenagers. And with your teenagers, if you get upset, then they may say, Mom, I'll be okay in 5 minutes. I can come back in 5. And you may want to say, you know what? I won't be okay in 5. I tend to hold it a little bit longer than you. I need 20 minutes. So time yourself out. And then, if the point is, I want to get back and talk with you with love and respect and let you know how important you are in my life, then the orientation is different. So read the book, highlight things or underline things or star things, and share that with your spouse. Good luck.
Yes. Thank you, Dianne. I think it's so important to be on the same page with your partner or whoever you would be co-parenting with. And not everyone is willing to sit down and read a book, but I guess if you really intrigue them and talk to them about how passionate you feel about parenting your child the correct way, being on that same page is so important. Okay,
Lovely
the last
point, Ilona. And if you pick out just 1 or 2 paragraphs, then it makes it doable for them.
Okay, the last question, which I think you might have already answered, was regarding if two parents are not on the same page. We have 5 minutes left, and I was really intrigued by your 4-step correction process. So, if possible, in the last 5 minutes, could you briefly discuss that with us and what it entails?
Certainly. The 4-step correction process is very simple. First of all, usually when we're doing a 4-step correction process, we're upset. We're upset about something that the teen or our partner is doing, or maybe even a little child. So, first of all, get yourself back together again. Look at why you're afraid or hurt or what's going on with you. And then maybe even write it down and clear yourself. But walk into the conversation with that peace, with your self-respect and power, and respect for them and love for them. And then start with number 1, the positives. So I want to talk to you about something, but the first thing I want to start with is how much I love you. I love you so much, and I love these qualities about you, and these qualities about you, and these qualities. Step 2, concern. I'm really concerned lately because, and then tell them why you're concerned. And maybe share your feelings. So, for example, it may be a teenager, and you may want to say, one of the things I notice is that you're picking on your little sister. And this really concerns me because she's a lot smaller than you. She's really little, and this really hurts her feelings. And she loves you so much. And I don't want her to feel that this is the way that she should be treated. And I don't think it's good for you to act this way. And here I'm already starting. So the first was what you're concerned about, the way he treats his little sister. The third is the effects. You know, if you treat people this way at high school, in your work, at university, you're not going to have very many friends. And how would you feel if you were a child or you treated your children like this? What difference would it make in their life? But if you learn to nurture her and enjoy her and delight in her, your relationship is going to be better for the rest of your life. You will be in each other's lives for the rest of your lives. So I want you to think about what you'd like that to be. So you share the consequences of the negative behavior, the consequences of the positive potential behavior. That's the 3rd step. The 4th step is the plan. Do you want me to help you think of a solution? Is there anything you would like me to do differently? Shall we discuss the plan together? So number 4 is plan. So you make a plan together. They may not want your help. They may want your help. I've done this with adults, and I have many teacher friends that have done this with 95% of the students, even more than that, sometimes 99, will be okay with just a positive atmosphere and regular discipline, and time out. But maybe 1 out of 1 to 5 out of 100 kids will need a 4-step correction process. And then it's essential to do. But do it from your self-respect. You are a parent that's loving, but you are a parent that's also powerful and is in self-respect. And you have a right to be treated with respect, as do your children. So stay in your self-respect and power. And for example, if your children are being negative to you, you say to them, I really am quite concerned about your tone of voice. And so I love it when we have a wonderful relationship together. But this part of the relationship right now, this phase, isn't something that I like. And I'm not willing to be a target. The love that we have for each other is not only important for me and for you and our family, but it's important for the whole world. Because how we are with each other is how we're going to be with the whole world. And I think we've both agreed so many times that the world needs more peace and more love and more respect. So how can we get that going again? Is there something you need me to do or you want me to do? And then, so talk like this and stay in that space. And again, you are so important for your children. So all good wishes to you.
Thank you so much, Sister Dianne. Okay, so the title of the book, there's another question here. It is in the chat. I will repost it. Nurturing with wisdom and love, disciplining with peace and respect. So thank you to everyone for joining us. I think Sister Dianne has gone to fetch the book. Yes.
You see it?
Yes.
Nurturing with love and wisdom, disciplining with peace and respect.
Yeah, and it's available online for anyone that's interested. So we're 2 minutes over time, so I'm going to close the session now, but I just want to read out a quote. And I think, as much as we are parents, our kids can also teach us quite a bit. And this particular quote by Angela Schwind says that while we try to teach our children about life, our children teach us what life is all about. So let's keep that in mind as we are disciplining and loving them. Thank you, Sister.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your moderating and your questions, and thank everybody on the call.
Thank you. It was a pleasure hosting the session. Have a good night, everyone.
Stay warm. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
You're most welcome.